you won't find one single flag of Israel waving there, because we look at this flag as a rebellion against God. Basically, Judaism is a religion of over 3,000 years. With Moses went on Mount Sinai and received the Torah, the 5 books of Moses, and all that encompasses. He got that from God and gave it to the Jewish people. We made a covenant to be subservient to God and to accept the 613 commandments, the laws of the Torah, as is written in the Torah and the 5 books of Moses. That's the written law. Then there's the oral law that was given from Moses to explain, because it's very concise in the 5 books of Moses, the explanations and so forth. That this was handed down throughout the generations without any gap. And that is basically what Judaism is. We're not allowed to stray one iota, one letter from Judaism as it's been passed down. We're very exacting. It says in the Torah verse that we're not allowed to go right or left from the Torah. We're not allowed to add or subtract from the Torah. It doesn't matter how great the individual is. This is what our Torah is. So there's only one Judaism. But around 250 years ago, 250 years, somebody, Moses Mendelssohn, his name should be eradicated, got up. He was a scholar, and he decided that, one of the issues they kept it out, like Moses made the Torah not from God, or something like that. And therefore you can pick and choose what you want, and they decided to reform Judaism. Reform, change it. Now, that's ridiculous to us, because it was given by God. All the Jews witnessed this. These came along and they made their own rabbinate, so they ordained their ministers and rabbis, and all of a sudden they're calling themselves a branch of Judaism. Why they just didn't go off and drop the whole thing? No, but the Satan was behind this, that they should create some test to the Jewish people, so they made something called Reform Judaism. It is the most ridiculous thing in the world. How could they call themselves a representation of Judaism? They created something. So you made a movement. You made a new religion, you want to call it, or whatever you want to call it, but don't put the label Judaism on it when it's totally antithetical, when it is contradictory to God gave us the Torah and so on. So that was reform. And the majority of Jews today, unfortunately, I'm not proud to say this, but it really hurts to say it, but the majority of Jews today around the world, maybe because of the suffering, a lot to do with the suffering that we went through generations, they left the folds of religion and they consider themselves proper Jews, even though they're not upholding the covenant, which is Judaism. Now, Theodor Herzl was exonerated, but the hurt of anti-Semitism was in the air, and Theodor Herzl and others used this and said, how much are we going to suffer? You see, assimilation is not helping us. We're still getting attacked as Jews. So the other solution, they came along with another solution. Instead of assimilating into society, they're going to create their own national home. So the children, the offsprings of this assimilation movement called Reform Judaism that threw away the yoke of Torah, the covenant we made with God, came along with another concept. They'll make their own home state, their own nationalism. That was called Zionism. They were also of this of these groups that had totally rejected and relieved themselves of the responsibility of observing and upholding the laws of the Torah, but they came along with another way of making national home. So now, let us talk about, as Jews, with God's help, we were told when we took the Torah 3,000 years ago that we're supposed to go into the Holy Land, because to serve God in the Torah, it says God, there's many commandments, certain called truma, certain types of charities, and many issues. To be close to God, God told us to go into the Holy Land. There were people who were reluctant to go in, and they were punished. Therefore, we were punished. We wandered 40 years in the wilderness. People know about that. When we went in, because, as it says in the Torah many times, it's replete with verses. It says, be careful, do not be very careful, because when you're going into the Holy Land, it is holy. And if it's holy, you have to be at a very high level of spirituality as a nation. If not, then the Almighty warns us that in Torah, the land will reject you if you will defile the land. So it doesn't mean that the Jews who eventually were driven from the land with the destruction of the temple that it was they were so bad. It was they were not on this exceptional high level of spirituality that was required, and therefore you find all the books of the prophets, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, Isaiah, all of them spoke about warning the Jews in their prophecies that they will be driven from the land because they're not up to par in that what's required. And they eventually went into exile with the destruction of the temple. So again, the Jews went in 3,000 years ago. They went, King Solomon went afterwards, eventually built the temple. But he wrote what's a book of prophecy called the Song of Songs, Shir HaShirim, where he writes a prophecy that there will come a time that you will be driven into exile. At that time, do not attempt to release yourself from exile through physical means. So basically he said that, remember, it's the Almighty who rules the world. He gave you the land. We are driven from the land as a nation, and do not attempt to really rebel against this decree of God. So there's actually 3 oaths. We were put under 3 oaths. One is that when sent into exile, we should not return en masse in large numbers. Secondly, we should not rebel against any nation. We have to be loyal citizens in every country where we reside. Thirdly, not to make any attempt to end exile. And this happened 2,000 years ago with the destruction of the temple. And from that day till today, Jews who are true to the Torah believe fully the Almighty never changed. He created the world. He took us in. He sent us out. It's his world. He gives reward. He gives punishment. And the bitter medicine is that we are, the decree of exile, that we are dispersed amongst the nations. But it's from God. God is all compassionate, is good. He knows what's good. It's a medicine. It's to break our haughtiness. And so we accept this. And we say in our prayers, because of our sins, we're in exile. No Jewish child, no Jewish man or woman will refute or say, you know what the problem is? We didn't have a strong enough army. We didn't have enough guns. We were shlamazels in Hebrew. It says we were like incapable. We weren't doing well. Therefore, if we would have had the better arms, we could have stopped the Greeks or the Romans from driving us into exile. No, we say in our prayers, we know because of our sins, we're in exile. The only solution is our repentance, serving God. And when God sees the time is right, in the blink of an eye, exile will end, and we believe God will make a metaphysical change in the world. All humanity will recognize one God. We say the verses in the prophets, all the nations will join arms, and we will go up and serve God in harmony. As it says in Isaiah, across from the United Nations, one nation shall now lift up a sword against another nation. They shall beat the swords into plowshares. And there's a famous Isaiah wall across from the United Nations, a beautiful verse from Isaiah. Yes, we believe there will be a metaphysical change. It will be with harmony and totally universally. We will all go and accept the godliness. Not the Jew people will become Jewish. Not that. It's not required to become Jewish to serve God. It will be that all nations will recognize God, and God will build a temple. It will be accepted by all humanity. That's our belief. Our belief, therefore, is distinctly different than the Christian belief in the future, different than the Muslim belief, but we were never considered by the Muslims as a threat. We will be living from in hundreds of years in Muslim countries because they know, they're scholars, they know that we are forbidden for these 2,000 years. I mean, since exile began, they know that we are not aspiring or striving to establish our sovereignty, our nationhood, to take over Palestine. They know it. In fact, they know that to us it is it's a cardinal sin to do that. We're in exile. And what will happen in the future? They disagree what the Messiah is, Mashiach. We have different concepts, but that's a spiritual thing in the future, and that will be proven when, it happens. This Rabbi Cohen is a codifier of Jewish law. He made the Mishnah Berurah. Every religious person knows and uses his books. It's considered, everybody looks as a authority of Judaism. And he said, the Zionists are dead limbs of our people, which causes the entire body to rot. Basically, just one of so many, they all had the same opinion, but in different ways of expressing it. All the authorities said this is totally against God, because we're not in exile because we're physically lacking, and the solution can't be to take a gun. God put us into exile. It's not because God is bad, God forbid, and it's not because God is not compassionate. And it's not that God doesn't have foresight. Of course, everything, God has all of that. And he understands that it's like a medicine that's bitter. He put us in the corner. He put us in exile. And it is a medicine. It is something, a bitter medicine, but it is a medicine. The King of Kings, everything he does is perfect. He sent us into exile. Yes, it is for us a medicine to be dispersed, to break our audience. At the same time, it serves a dual purpose that if we're serving God properly, we are a light unto the nations. They will see ideally how a person should serve God, should be close to God. Not become Jewish, but be served God, be close to God. Mahu rachum afatu tirachum. Just as God is compassionate, you should be compassionate. You go for miracles. You won't find one single flag of Israel waving there. Not one. And the reason for that is because we look at this flag as a rebellion against God. So when the world is looking for truth, when the world, if they're really seriously looking for what's righteous, what's justice and truth, then they should question themselves, why is it that there's a group called Jewish State, Jewish this, Jewish that Anti-Defamation League, JNF, Jewish that? Why is it that amongst the very religious communities, they're opposed to this? Something is wrong. And they'll come to and they'll do a little scratching on the surface, and they'll realize that we are dealing with a movement that's a little over 100 years. Our religion is 3,000 years. We're dealing with a movement that's trying to co-opt, trying to steal the name of Judaism. And that for selfish convenience sake, a group of people that were living in Vienna, Austria, and they decided they need their convenience. They need their pleasures. And it's going to be at the cost of whoever stands in their way. And they're going to immorally take the identity of the Jewish people. Our religion is everything to us. And therefore, we will never capitulate or relinquish our identity, Judaism, to a movement that's using us for their base materialistic will and want, and they're ready to sacrifice on their altar of Zionism. It's called Zionism, by the way, because Zion means Zion in the books of the prophets. Zion means the city of David, which means basically Jerusalem. So they decided they're going to create their homeland in Jerusalem, in Zion, and they call them Zionists. And therefore they're using our identity to perpetrate this colossal crime against God, the rebellion against God, and killing and stealing and oppressing a people. And they're buying, and the world is supporting them. It's beyond human dignity. It's beyond comprehension also why the world should accept such a thing when there is so many communities really who are anti-Zionist, and they're screaming for 76 years, dying in the streets of Jerusalem, because the rabbis there have never capitulated. They're saying Israel has no right to rule over any part of the Holy Land. Bibi Netanyahu does not represent world Jewry. And their voices are not even reported on. They're not even reported on in the mainstream media when these things were happening. It should be mainstream news. After all, it should be a shock. America is supporting it. They're supporting it. The president is meeting with Netanyahu. He was, let's say, even President Obama. And why aren't they reporting that the very religious communities with their beautiful, esteemed, distinguished rabbinical scholars are screaming that it's wrong, that they're a fraud? Why aren't they screaming about the fact that boys and girls get arrested because it's mandatory military service, and the boys and girls of our communities, they refuse to serve in the army? So basically, they steal our name. They totally rebel against God, beat the Jews. They try to break the backbone of the Jewish communities there, and the world somehow just doesn't get it. So it's something that we are speaking not in the name, as I say, of myself. We're speaking on the name of Judaism around the world that's true to Judaism, and nobody, if they take the base intelligence and just study the issue, they will find that the very religious communities have and do stand in opposition to the creation of the state the mere existence of this occupation. It's a fraud. And with the actions that emanate from it, we cry and hurt with the people of Gaza, with the people of Palestine. We're hurting with them, we're crying with them. So let us make a world body, to adjudicate conflict through a peaceful means. And they had the most distinguished people from every country comes together. And one of the first things they do is ratify a creation called the State of Israel, which means that you have three beautiful fabric in the Holy Land of different religions, Muslims, Christians, Jews, living together. And you're going to stamp this area, the State of Israel. What does logic tell you? What will happen to all the other communities? They're automatically second-class citizens. There's going to be bloodshed. How does such a body create, and it happens to be the majority were Muslims in Palestine, and the second largest were the Christian community, and the third, Jews. But as I showed you, even the Jewish community didn't want this. The ones who are living there for these hundreds of years. These are Jews who are giving their lives to the Torah. This is Judaism. And Zionism is a breach. It's not Judaism. It is ersatz Judaism. It's a transformation from religion to nationalism. Unacceptable, unacceptable, unacceptable. That's what we're dealing with. And we're crying with the people of Gaza, who are being murdered senselessly. And like I said, the creation of the state is satanic, if you think about it, because why did the world, this body called the United Nations, accept to create this? 76 years, you're oppressing a people. You're stamping on their rights, on their homes, disqualifying them from the homes that they've had for hundreds of years, saying it's not theirs. You're going to 17 years they're having in Gaza, that they're an open-air prison. They're living in a place that they can't leave if they wanted to, with polluted water, limited food, access to food. They can't even go fishing out there in the Gaza. They're suffering and suffering. It's terrible. It's beyond comprehension. And we call it, this whole issue is satanic, because if not, the world would not have been silent, wouldn't be silent by the creation of the state, and wouldn't be silent when we were seeing 17 months of over 50,000 people murdered, children, babies, cities destroyed, their lives destroyed, emotionally. We're talking over 2 million people and their relatives that are emotionally scarred for life. There's no words for what we're dealing with. Why? We plead with our leaders, and I really plead with them. You may get a beneficial short-term reward for your supporting Zionism. Yes, you're going to give respect. You're going to get backing. You're going to get political offices. Very fine. But one day, it's a short term. I don't know how long you think you're going to be a congressman, a senator, a prime minister, a president. We don't know. A person doesn't know. But it's definitely not for life. And one day afterwards, there's one time that they're going to have to answer to God. And isn't it much more rewarding to do what's right and save lives, save these people? One day you're going to have to do rules of the world. You're going to have to answer to your grandchildren why you were silent and why didn't you take action at such a clear, flagrant abuse of godliness, of justice. I plead with the world leaders, stand up and do what's right. Stand up for the people of Palestine. Do not allow this carnage to go on.
Aloha everyone, this is Jason Jones for LifeSite News. We hope you enjoyed this video. For more content like this, check the link in the description. You can also connect with us on social media to stay up to date with the latest news on life, faith, family, and freedom. Thanks for watching, and may God bless you.